to our first webinar from ISS. We had solicited questions at the start of the call, or when you registered, and so we went through those and kind of put them into themes for everybody, and we'll address those main questions, and then from there we'll open it up to Q&A. But to begin with, I'd like to introduce everyone here today. So to start with, we've got Janice Dwyer. She is a reception learning leader from Chinese International School in Hong Kong. Hi, Janice. And she has been working in online learning for 9 weeks. And so that's quite a chunk of time. Additionally, we have Nicola Foote, who's over in my left-hand corner, and she's a kindergarten grade level leader, and she's at the Western Academy of Beijing in Beijing, China, and has also been teaching online for 9 weeks. And we have Sean. Sean is an elementary ed tech coach from Chadwick International School in South Korea, and he's been teaching online for 5 weeks. So welcome, everybody. Do you want to say hi real quick?
Hi, I'm really excited to be doing this. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, it's really such an intimidating journey starting on this adventure and just being disconnected from our kids. So it's great to be here.
Yes, just seeing familiar faces and then even just scrolling through the list of attendees and seeing familiar names. It's pretty fun to see.
All right, to get us started, one of the first questions that we had a lot of inquiries about was, what is the structure of the day-to-day online learning look like for an early years student? And so to start us off, Janice, do you want to start us off with that question?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we started with this 9 weeks ago, we actually decided to give families as much flexibility as possible. We really felt, well, one thing that, I'm in Hong Kong, and one thing we had experienced previously that in November is we had some closures due to the protests here. And so one of the things that we learned from that situation was that we were going to get such a wide range of sort of families were going to want such a wide range of experiences from virtual learning, online learning. And so we really decided going into it that our kids are like 4 or 5, and what's age appropriate and what can families do, what one family wants to do and what another family wants to do is so far apart that we just decided to give families as much flexibility as possible. So instead of planning learning by day, we decided to plan it by week. We happen to be a dual language school, so we chose to do several activities. In fact, I'm going to pop on right now and share my screen and show you sort of what our learning plan looks like for a weekly basis. This is the learning plan, not that we started with necessarily, but it's the one that we have evolved to over the last few weeks. So this is at about week 8. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what we are currently doing. Can everybody see my screen now? Yeah, good, Nick, you can see it. Apparently, there it is. So our online learning plan looks kind of like this. We send it out in both a PDF and a Google Doc form every week. And so there's always a message for the parents at the top. And then we have different bookmarks. We've got the schedules of everything that we're doing for the week. And if you notice, like one class is scheduled, we've got weekly activities. So we've got videos going out daily via Seesaw. We've got a live interaction, like a class via Google Meet initially, but we're migrating to Zoom. And then we've got 2 more videos later in the week. So the way the classes have scheduled it is slightly different. We later built in some read aloud sessions because families really said that they wanted more interaction with us and they really weren't getting enough Chinese. But then the actual learning plan, so here's our Chinese tasks. So we've got like 1, 2, 3 tasks a week. Those are sort of the main core tasks. And then the families get to choose one of those activities to post on Seesaw. We're not requiring them to do anything in particular. We're not saying one task is required. We're letting students and families kind of pick and choose what they would prefer to do. You may notice that we've QR coded everything so that they can print it out and just scan it. So same thing with our English activities. We've got 3 tasks a week. Then our math activities, we've chosen 2 a week. And then what we call integrated studies, which is the social studies, science, humanities, we've got 2 to 3 a week. And really, we've asked families just to post 1 activity a week on Seesaw per subject, so they can pick and choose and have as much flexibility as they want. And that seems to be going really quite well, I think. That's how we've chosen to do it. And tasks, we have about a 5 to 7 minute video for each task that we produce so that they get increased connection with us. And then the kids will go off and do whatever task it is on their own. That's how we've tried to go about it. How's that, Dana?
Fantastic. Sean or Nikki, did you want to add anything to that?
One of the things that I wanted to add was that we had quite strict amounts of time that the children should be engaging with online learning at home. So that it was really cut down in comparison to what they were doing at school. And it was, the parents were really informed that it was not a replica of the school day. So early years would be doing, and the amount of time that we had was an hour and a half. And it did stretch out to 2 hours at some points, but we're really bringing that back down to an hour and a half per day. Because what's tended to happen is that the screen time was just increased, or the children were doing far too much and not having enough time to play. And the play was reduced, and we needed to reset that balance after a period of time. But we really had to do a lot of teaching to our parents of why that bit was important.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, as far as like the structure of the day, it definitely varies, at least at Chadwick where we're at, where we consider early years is pre-K through first grade. So first grades are 1-to-1 iPads, so they're more independent, they're able to do a lot more. Whereas pre-K and kinder, we're relying on parents to use most likely their own cell phones or their own devices. So as far as like screen times or the schedules, it has to be a lot more flexible and a lot more understanding, because it's going to cater a lot more to the moms and dads and who's driving it.
Yeah, I think that equity question, equity point is really important. You know, like when we went into this, I'm a kindergarten teacher in Beijing, and we were on spring break or Chinese New Year break, and then suddenly we weren't returning to school for maybe a couple of weeks. The children were in a range of different places around the world, not just necessarily in Beijing at home. So they had gone on holiday, and they may have 1 iPad, or they may have a dad's computer, or they may have just a phone. So we really are still in that situation where we have a huge amount of parents, although parents did go out and buy technology to support their children. We might have families of 2 or 3 kids, a parent and 2 parents who are working at home, and they've got 3 devices between them or 2 devices between them. So a lot of our technology, we had to be really careful about what we were putting as an online task, what was going to be the most important part of that, which tended for us to be the reflection or the sharing aspect of it. And then the bits that we were really trying to get out with the play aspect. So a lot of our activities or a lot of our experiences that we were providing were very play focused, looking at bookmaking, looking at card games in mathematics, looking at games that they could create and play with their families. That's where we started off at the beginning.
Nikki, that really leads us into one of the next questions that was common amongst the participants was, in an online environment, how might we promote health and well-being and play with early year students?
Pardon me, sorry. So one of the things that I think has been really obvious over this period of time is the amount of stress that this causes. This experience that we are all going through is highly stressful. There is a significant lack of joy in the world, and families are stressed. They're not getting outside, they're restrained, and they're kept cooped up. And we've had this definitely in China since January. Children have not been out of their homes, and you talk to their parents and they haven't been out. They just won't take the kids outside. So one of the things that I think has been really important is just reminding our kids and reminding ourselves who their community is. why are we all important? We are still out there, and we needed to bring those connections together so that we were reminded daily. So it started off by we used Flipgrid, absolutely. We had not used it at all before we started this adventure. And now it's become our rock. We absolutely love Flipgrid. We host it for so many different things for the kids, but also for ourselves in organizing materials for the students or families or ourselves in mini lessons. So one of the things that we started to do was morning meetings. We're a responsive classroom school, and we had morning meetings every day, and we would take it in turns to just send a morning message to our kindergarten community, and the children would respond, or they would post their own message. And that started off where we were just looking at joy. We were looking at funny things. We were trying to notice what we saw around, and we might also do some links to our curriculum in some way or another. But more recently, we've tried to look at other ways that we can do this. In looking at what the kids are sharing with us and promoting the students' learning, in connecting students in different grade levels to each other. And then also having, today we had an assembly. It was our first assembly on Zoom, and we had kindergarten and grade 1. We had children drawing on the screen. We had people unmiking themselves every 3 seconds, and we're trying to whack-a-mole them back in so that you can mute them again and again and again. But I think, however, the technology is never going to be perfect. And I think that's another issue we should talk about in a bit. But we've had significant issues with technology and being able to share online learning in the way that we have been doing it before. And I think what's important is just what's the most important thing for the kids right now. And for me and for my team and for what we've been talking about is bringing that joy and that sense of community back into what we do, and really highlighting bringing each other together through storytelling and through funny stuff and dressing up, and we wear hats and do silly things like that.
Janice and Sean, did you want to add anything to that?
I think I just want to echo what Nikki says about community. I mean, really, that is the hugest piece that's going to be missing from these children's life, and what little things we can do to continue that. I mean, yeah, we can find videos teaching phonics or teaching whatever it is we want to on YouTube. We can find anything, but for us to spend a little bit of time and show ourselves in there is another way to make our kids feel connected with their peers, with us, doing things like sending them happy birthday messages, you know, figuring out ways to connect with things that are important to them. I think that's really more important than anything that we do right now.
One of the things that I started to do about 4 weeks ago was open myself up to the parents much more. And so the parents were stressed. They didn't know what they were doing, or they didn't feel like they knew what they were doing. And they were desperate to do it right. They were desperate for help and support and advice, and they would do anything really you wanted them to. They just didn't know what to do. And so I opened up Zoom session once a week. It started at where the parents just had an open forum and they can do a Q&A session with me. And it was really interesting. I was absolutely terrified because I thought I would get all these questions I wouldn't be able to answer. But actually, and the school counselor actually came in and helped me and sat with me. But now I have it every week because the parents are desperate to know about bookmaking and how you support your child. Do you give them the word? Do you tell them what the word spelling is for a word? Or do you write it down? How do they know how to spell the words? How would you support spelling? And it was all these things like, do they have to do cursive writing? It was all these things that were really important to them that they wanted to get right. And I think that supporting the parents actually through this process made our children so much happier because they were calmer about it. They didn't feel that they had to be sitting there working with their children for 4 hours on a book, or, you know, they knew that they could actually leave their child to make a book, walk away, have a cup of tea and a biscuit and come back in a little bit, you know. And at the beginning, we found that our parents were hovering over our children quite a lot and really kind of nudging a little bit too much maybe. And now, since we've had those conversations, it's been where the parents feel freer to actually give that ownership to the child, which is brilliant.
Just quickly to interject, 3 things that I've seen that have happened stateside that I don't know if it would work in an international context, but I found, I saw that one school went and had a lineup of all the cars of the teachers, and they drove through the neighborhood and waved hi to all of their, and they knew the addresses of the kids, so the kids all came out in their windows and were waving. And then another thing was, I saw a whole thing, they're doing it here in Princeton, where you put a rainbow in your windows so the kids can go for walks with their parents and search for rainbows throughout the town. And then another thing that I've seen quite a bit, because I run, is people are writing little messages in sidewalk chalk on the sidewalks so kids can go around, and just anyone. As a society, we need to go out and walk if we can, but to give messages of hope to people from various different people. And those were just 3 things that I've just seen stateside that I thought seemed really, really a way to help pull people together as well, and away from potentially a screen. That kind of brings us into the next question that I'm going to kind of direct specifically to you, Sean. But what suggestions do you have to minimize screen time for early year students? Because I know you've got a huge background in ed tech. Well, so does everyone on this panel. But specifically, do you have some ideas for us?
Well, I guess kind of piggybacking off of like the health and well-being and parents and stuff. We're all at different stages. So what I've been telling people is like, when your school does pull the trigger and go online, don't be afraid to treat that first day as a snow day, or the first 2 days as a snow day, and don't jump in, because not only are your teachers running around with their heads cut off, parents are trying to figure out what in the world they're going to do with their kids. And then you've got teachers at different tech levels, parents at 0 tech levels. And so you've heard Seesaw, you've heard Flipgrid, you've heard Zoom, but it doesn't mean that you have to implement them right away. You start simple and you start what they're comfortable with, and that will build the screen time expectations, the platform expectations, and kind of get your class and your teams in a grind of just seeing what works, what doesn't work. But especially like where we're at, since it is parent owned, there are a lot of like morning meeting videos with like a game plan and some choices that the kids can make that are off the screen, where it's like making your bed or building something, where they're not on a screen. It could just be mom or dad just quickly recording and asking a question, and then the parent then can post however, that whenever they see fit, or whenever they get back. Maybe it's the nanny recording, but then mom and dad post later. And with the improvement of Seesaw and seeing how everything is going, it used to be kind of tricky of sharing the QR codes for logins and stuff. But now with the distance learning QRs, they're QRs that are specific to children. So that way you're not having to worry about Jimmy's mommy logging in and snooping in what little Nikki's doing on Seesaw. And so this helps break down those fears and speed bumps along the way. But it's just providing open-ended activities where it's also building life skills: brush your teeth, make your bed, build a fort, like read a book, take a picture of you reading a book in your favorite spot, where they're still doing and following the activities in Seesaw, but they're just doing normal stuff that they would do on a Saturday or any other day.
And do you have any suggestions or frameworks that work specifically for face-to-face calls, like as far as like protocols or suggestions on how to do that with the younger kids?
I mean, Nikki and Janice can definitely jump in on this one too, because we are probably about a week and a half into pre-K and K dabbling in Zoom, but definitely advise them to either do one-to-ones right away. So then you're getting, but definitely share the code, because it's just easier to type in than links. Or, and I saw a question of between Meet and Zoom. Meet, the link is open, so then kids could possibly bounce in and out, where Zoom students can't join in until the teacher is in, And then once you eventually graduate into more students in there, then you're in control of the mute, the unmute. You can boot out little pre-K kids if you want, if they're unruly. But no, just start small, because then this is possibly the first time a little 4-year-old's in front of a webcam. That way he or she's getting the wiggles out with mom right next to him, with you right there talking about all the buttons. Then maybe do a small group where they can intermingle with their friends and gradually build up. But don't worry about the first ones being educational. Just have them be fun. Share their favorite stuffed animal. Just read a book to them. Like, a lot of these things are just seeing their friends and seeing their teachers' faces is what makes the difference.
I completely agree with you. We didn't do Zoom straight away. It took us a little bit of time to pluck up our courage and do that. We really did take a few weeks at the beginning. And we just weren't ready as teachers to feel like we could have a whole class there, and did we have to control it, and how is that going to work? And you don't. We do many different ways of using Zoom now. And we just come back from a break. So it's literally like the kids have never used Zoom before. And they're back on it, and they don't talk, and they're sitting there and they're playing with their cars in front of them, and they're looking at you, and you're reading a story. But it's all part of developing this online persona that they need to have. And this is just a situation that we are in now. They have to learn how to communicate online. And this is a great listening and speaking experience for them. And they have to start to build those skills up. They have to know that when someone is speaking, you've got to listen with your eyes and your ears. And that's, as a teacher, actually, I have to say that's taken me a little bit of time to build my confidence up with, because at the beginning I felt like I was kind of really, really, really bad with the Zoom controls. And I would be clicking on people and things would not work. And sometimes it was a bit clunky. And the kids, our parents must have been looking at me like I was a complete crazy loon. But once I got my confidence, now I can read a story and the kids are engaged, and I can stop and say, hey, right, stop writing on the screen, or how do we do that? And we type in our new kind of essential agreement that we have, and we're building those up as we go along. But you just need to remember that you're building your confidence. The children are building their confidence. You've never used this technology. The parents haven't. It's so new. And I think you really need to kind of give yourselves a break about it all and just kind of work out when you're ready. And it's okay to say, I need more time.
Yeah, and can I add, like, a lot of us are not so comfortable about seeing ourselves or hearing our voices online. And one thing that I try to keep in mind is this isn't actually about me. This is about them. We do it in the classroom all the time, and we don't see or hear each other, so hear ourselves, so it doesn't really make a difference. Nikki's that puppet you just pulled out. But this is actually like, just forget about yourself and get out there and try. And I think if we're really open with the kids and the parents, like, really, we are modeling risk-taking to such a high level. Like what great example is that for our kids? And so just go in and have a go and keep it brief and set up your class agreements. So yeah, super short. And also remember what one person does may not be what another person does. And different people's tolerances for chaos are completely different. Like we actually started with, we have 16 kids in a class. We started with 16 all at once, and we realized, well, this isn't gonna work. And so we've actually gone down to 8 at a time. And we have teaching assistants. Somebody asked a question about teaching assistants. We have teaching assistants in there. We actually have partner teachers. So our partner teacher is in there. And so whoever's running the lesson or the activity or whatever it is, they're worrying about the communication, but we've got people in the background kind of supporting us with the who's gonna mute the kids, unmute the kids, who's gonna pin the kids so that we can see their faces. All of those different things. And if you're in a situation where you don't have teaching assistants or where you don't have a co-teacher, like, find someone who you can partner with and tag team with them. Like, there's lots of ways to work around it, but just start really small.
I don't think that you can do a I think if you want to do a really good lesson where the children are engaged and you really want to get something out of it and nudge the learning forward in some way, you need to have another adult who is sorting the tech for you. And that's one of the things that I literally learned this week. Okay. I've been doing this for 9 weeks and I've just learned this, that you can share the controls with another teacher so they have control over it and not me, which is brilliant. And I had no idea that I could do that. So is that new?
I was going to say that's in Zoom, right, Nikki?
Yeah, just in
Zoom.
Zoom.
A little bit trickier in Meets. In Meets, somebody else can mute other people, but you can't like make kids leave if you need to. That's, although it's apparently changing. Sean, do you know if that's going to, when that update's happening?
Apparently Google has unleashed their top dog of meaty stuff. I don't know what the word is or what it's called, but then that allows recording and a lot of the similar features. So yeah, that'd be also something to look into as well.
One of the things I noticed that someone put a question on that was about child protection. So one of the things that we do is we always record the session. And in Zoom, you can just have the recording button and it will just, no matter what, every Zoom you have will record without you having to worry about it. So I will do that no matter what. It just records and I have a whole and then I actually send the videos out to the parents who couldn't attend or the students who couldn't attend. And I send videos out to my teachers as well, so that if they've been worried about something or I tried something, then they can also see how that went.
And do you each have Zoom Pro accounts, or are you still using the free accounts? Because I've heard differences in experiences for those two things.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions about that.
So Zoom is, originally it started where they lifted the 40-minute limit. Whereas like with this being early years, I highly doubt you're going to be on Zoom for more than 40 minutes with your students. But I believe they have lifted it for everyone. I will have to hunt down the link.
I've still got, I'm in Singapore and I was in the UK a couple of weeks ago, and I still had a 40-minute stop on my account. And I'm not quite sure about anyone else, but mine will max out at a 40-minute meeting. But one of the things about a 40-minute meeting, interesting enough, so if you read a story online, it takes so much longer to read it, I think, than it does in real life. So everything you do online takes so much longer. And so just remember, less is more. That was one of the things. We might come back to that, but I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, 40 minutes.
One of the things I heard from my colleagues in Hong Kong was that the Pro account allows you to upload the video faster and you have unlimited storage, where the regular, and I don't know if that's still true because I know they've been changing things rapidly. Zoom is just trying to open up and help as many people as possible. But originally, I know the Pro account was not taking up all that space on their computer, and it was a faster upload so they could share it out with students. I don't know if that's still true.
I think they gave
it.
Yeah, I don't think they gave us the Chinese, the teachers in China didn't get a Pro account. They just got the time limit lifted.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're all still on the same account.
That I want to move us into. There's been a lot of questions as well along how you're approaching literacy and guided reading with early year students online. Janice, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, sure. So what we've been doing is, I mean, we are relatively academic in our context. We're sort of balancing play-based with, the academics. So we focused a lot on maybe perhaps not literacy, but the three main things we've tried to do is we've tried to keep up the handwriting, like letter formation. We've tried to do a lot of read alouds with the kids. So we actually have a drop-in read aloud every day for English and Chinese. That's something we only built in about 3 weeks ago. That took us some time to get there. And that's actually not interactive because we have potentially 96 kids dropping in one go. So the kids come on, they know that they're supposed to be muted. So that's not, we've been doing a lot of sort of phonics and just our sounds, our basic foundational sounds, which we use a program called Get Reading Right, and we're using the materials that we already have available to us. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're trying to think about what do we have and what can we still use. We have an app program also called Phonics Hero. If you don't know it, that's got great games that aligns with our particular phonics program. Epic. We had problems because the libraries here closed, as I'm sure the libraries have closed in many of the places around you, or your campuses are closed, you can't get in and out of them. So even though we were reluctant to throw on more screen time, we said to families, feel free to use Epic, but it is not required. And I think a lot of them have, especially, now that we're 9 weeks in, I think families' attitudes towards screen time have somewhat changed because they've just realized that, kids are housebound, and what else are we going to do with them? I think that's most for me. I know, Nikki, you had quite a bit you wanted to add to that topic.
Well, yeah. So one of the things we did quite very, very similar things. It's we've just recently started to do phonics mini groups. So we'll do mini lessons with different teachers. We're very lucky in our team that we've got a learning support teacher and a EAL teacher. So we do pull out little groups as well who are doing some support there. But some of the stuff that's coming out has been amazing. So for one of the things that we already have this at school, which is Raz Kids. We love Raz Kids because although the books are not brilliant, the kids, you can really get to the right level that the kid needs. Plus they can read it, you can hear them, they can record their reading, you get a recording, and then you can really listen into that and really give them some really valuable next steps. We don't use that every day, but we do use it as an assessment tool, and that's still really viable online. One of the things that we've used a lot is mini lessons in Flipgrid. So we have a Flipgrid where we've created mini lessons for our bookmaking, and we're looking at nonfiction text. So we've built up, the teachers have created, as the kids have been making books, we've been making these next step mini lessons. And those have been really valuable in sharing to different students who have needed that, that kind of nudge, really. We've got a whole load of read alouds where we've been doing read alouds, and our whole school has had a read aloud Flipgrid where lots and lots of teachers are putting read alouds into this one Flipgrid, which has been amazing. We've got Mo Willems online, who's now doing like so much stuff. We've got, and also Matt Glover, Mr. Lover Glover, he is, love him, is doing actual videos for parents. So he's on the second day today, and he's got 2 brilliant videos that you can share with your parents to teach them why bookmaking is so valuable and so important. And he's going to take them through the process of bookmaking. I really wish I had that 9 weeks ago. Yeah, so that's, we also do Zoom groups, which I found, we've just started that really this week and last week, which is just inviting children into a little group with 4 kids, where we just work for 30 minutes on a specific skill.
How are you guys handling copyright issues when you're doing read alouds? I see that question a couple times in our chat. Can one of you address that?
So we initially just thought, oh, well, let's read stories and post videos and put them in our Google Drive and put them out there. And this was 9 weeks ago. So the landscape has changed with regard to this. And then somebody asked, are we allowed to do this? And we were advised, no, you're not really allowed to do this because you are then publishing. And then we were going, eek, what do we do? So we ended up emailing a lot of, listing down books which we wanted to read and do this. We emailed publishers, we got some feedback, but I think a lot of schools were doing that. And so a lot of publishers have now actually said, just do it and put it behind. Authors. And authors.
Yeah, online there's a whole load of them.
Yeah, we were initially told that you had to get publisher and author permission both. I don't know how that all works. Our workaround, though, was actually to do that live read aloud session. So 8 o'clock every morning, we have that live read aloud. Because you're only reading it aloud and you're not recording the video and putting it and posting it somewhere, that is permissible. So by having that drop-in session, that's actually like made it a huge difference for us. Anything, I know Scholastic, Penguin Random House, I think it is, they've allowed anything across the board. I mean, there's a whole list of them. I don't know if we could compile a list and get it out to you, but I'm sure we could probably get a good chunk of them.
Yeah, there's a good list online that's been developing, but I think that the read alouds, we got advice that as long as the video was gone by the end of the situation and was no longer shareable, we're good.
Ooh, nice. That's all
That was
great.
that was from our school librarian. He said, so I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll just to remind everyone, we will make a copy of the chat and the Q&A and share that out afterwards. And if we have links for any of these things, we'll attach those as well so that you have them. So links for these things. I noticed Laura's been telling people, like, we'll make sure you get all of those links and
Got a
things.
list going, and we'll make sure you get those links.
Fantastic. I know that we've already talked a little bit about Flipgrid and Seesaw, but are there any recommended platforms or tools or resources that you guys have used that specifically you think are really good for early years?
I know at least like with the Seesaw and Flipgrid and Epic and Raz, those were the ones that I had written down. But as you're starting to get further in those, there are a few speed bumps that you could run into. So if you're on iPads or non-MacBooks for Seesaw and you're posting Seesaw activities, you could post links in the directions, but they are not clickable on the apps. So that's one thing to prevent parents from banging down your doors, is don't put links within the directions. Maybe if you have multiple things, you could put it in like a Google Slides or a different format where they are clickable, or within the captions of the post. For Flipgrid, definitely turn on guest mode. Otherwise, it's going to prompt you to use your emails, whether it's a Microsoft or email, Gmail. So this way they just have to type in their names. So that's the easiest way for parents to possibly record. And I would say Screencastify is the teacher, because then that way you can do screen recordings to show walkthroughs. You can, if you're wanting them to do it on an iPad, screen record an iPad so they see where to click, where to do it, because you're also teaching the parents as well. So screen recording skills, all those little hacks within Flipgrid and Seesaw to make your life easier. I'm also going to share, if you haven't found it already, the Seesaw shortcuts page, because you're possibly sending these Seesaw lessons and messages to parents that don't speak English, or you're having kids that aren't strong readers. So utilize the shortcuts to show the icons, utilize the voice instructions. If you do have the capability, also translate it to the majority of your population. So our pre-K and K, a lot of our activities are written in English and then also in Korean below, because most likely parents are the ones that are reading it to support the tasks at hand. Oh, and to make morning meetings fun, snap camera.
Love it.
Then you can do fun stuff.
Can I add just one thing, that we're actually just using good old-fashioned email to send things out to our parents. We don't actually do Seesaw announcements for whatever reason. It's just the way our school ecosystem operates. So we have stuck with good old-fashioned email, and we put the links in there. We send out a Google link, we send out a PDF. I'm not sure if I said that we're actually sharing our learning plans on a Friday for the following Monday. And we try to send it before the work day on Friday finishes, because some families don't have printers at home. And if the families aren't going to be home looking after the kids, I mean, I don't know where you are, but a lot of people have babysitters or nannies looking after the kids. So if they don't have a printer, they need to get it printed out before they leave work on Friday afternoon. Then they have the weekend to sort of plan and organize who's going to do what days are what's going to happen. And then they're so much more able to just run with it. In fact, we sent one out a little bit late on Friday and I got in trouble for it. So that's what I would say. And go weekly, not daily. daily, it's just too much communication for people to wade through. The simpler you can make this, the better. Simple and clear.
I think that printer piece is so such a good tip, because I know, just as a parent with 3 kids, you know, I've tried to always make my kids do everything, be as paperless as possible, but there are so many things that their teachers are not able to do that, or it's just not working at all. And so I'm so relieved that I happened to buy a printer a month ago, and I never thought we'd use it. I had it in the basement. I hadn't even set it up, and now my kids are using it a lot. And so being able to print out at work for kids and being able to send stuff out early, that makes a lot of sense. At first, I was worried because I thought it might cause a lot of kids to do stuff on weekends, but they need those paper copies, some of them. So
Yeah,
that's great advice.
and the other thing about the printing, if you can compile all the handouts in one document so that they don't have to navigate through a multi-page document, so they just go, oh, here's everything I need to print for the whole week, done. That was a very popular addition, probably about 4 weeks into our virtual learning journey.
One of the things that Janice said was, you said that you went to a whole week in advance of activities. So we actually started, our school had started by saying, right, there should be something coming every day. And it was so overwhelming for parents having to scroll through. If you imagine you've got a few kids, I mean, it's just too much. So we now actually do a 2-weekly cycle in kindergarten where we have our learning going for the 2 weeks, and then we will be navigating and pulling in different ways throughout that time with the kids. But the parents have that for 2 weeks in advance.
Fantastic. One question that we've seen a lot of questions about is about our specialists. So drama, music, art, PE, etc. We're going to do a separate podcast or a separate webinar just for specialists and to help people with that. But for the early years, do you guys have any any idea? Can you give us some ideas of how your specialists are working with your early years students? Our specialists, so they started off by doing sort of on the Monday at 8:30, everyone will send out the learning, and then so we have art, performing arts, and PE, and so that will go out, and that was initially for quite a few weeks. They were then monitoring what was going on and providing verbal feedback or a written feedback in some way. But then what's happened now is that the specialists actually are having one day in the week, and this will change next week, where they're going to have one day that's just that specialist day. So that gives a little bit of kind of buffer time for the homeroom teachers, so they're not engaging every single day and online in that way with the kids face to face. And it also gives the students some time that's the day, because we were finding that participation within the specialist was really much lower than it was with everything else. So we're trying to have a look at ways that we can kind of raise the engagement for the specialists. So we're going to have one day a week where they're going to be engaging, and that will be through activities and through Zooms with different groups.
So, and at our school up until this point, our specialists have, I think they've been very, very active in the upper grades. They've had a lot going on, and there's a lot more to manage. We in reception, they've been participating, they've been sharing activities for our weekly plans. We are only just after our break, which is coming up in a week. Only then will they start to run their own discrete classes, but they will be on days where the kids don't already have other things going on as well. So we will, yeah, we'll build it in. It's, as I said, we're taking it slowly and figuring it out as we go. And I think they've been grateful for that as well.
One thing, this is more like a school-wide one, but what we've done is we've taken Friday, and that's a catch-up day. So specialists for other grades more so, but that's where they have kind of office hours where they can touch base, but then there's nothing assigned for any grades. And then it's just a time for kids to get caught up on seesaw activities or other work or just anything and everything and connecting to teachers. So
And I think from what I hear from everybody at our school, that's probably a really wise thing. This is intense. This is probably some of the most intense teaching you will ever be doing. And it's kind of a 24/7, and you may be managing families at home, communication coming at you from so many different directions. It is intense. We are in reception just a half day. And so I think that has given us a little bit of breathing room, because what we set for our morning classes versus our afternoon classes is the same. But I know the years, every year above us is a full day school, and the teachers are really, you know, they're at their maximum capacity. So having that catch up day is a good idea. And I think Nikki already said less is more. Start small, build in. And just because there's good ideas doesn't mean you have to do them all. It's easy. There's thousands of good ideas, but you just, what's really manageable for you and your families, and be really responsive to what the families are telling you. If they're saying too much, too little, like listen, get regular feedback from them, and try to improve as you're getting that feedback weekly.
Yeah, we've really looked at we've had lots of conversations about what do we really want from this. At the beginning, we were looking at our UOIs, we were looking at our curriculum documents and going, right, we can take this, we can take this, we can be doing this, and really tuning into our curriculum documents. And I think what's the thing is, we don't know what the children are really doing. It's very difficult to assess learning. It's very, very difficult to assess what's going on at home. And you don't know how much support they're getting. You cannot trust the information that you are getting is actually the child's work. So one of the conversations that we've had recently is about looking, assessing really the skills that they already have. Looking at what we're seeing, and we're really having lots of conversations about report writing at the moment, about how that's going to look, and I think it's going to have to change. But one of the things that we're looking at is assessment. And so, for instance, this week I have created I've never used this before, but Calendly app, is that right? Mm-hmm. Calendly app, and I really, really love it. It's not one to start off with, okay? It's not a get it out and start doing it now. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to tune into certain students for assessment. And I wanted to have deeper conversations with parents and deeper conversations with students about what was going on in different areas. So I had a Calendly app, and I have invited parents to sign up in different ways, and I can do it with different, set it so it's for different groups. So at the moment I'm looking at phonics assessment and reading assessment and writing assessment, and I can't do the maths at the same time. So that's going to have to wait for another few weeks, because the amount of time I have with my kids is very small. So what this Calendly app is really good. If anyone's interested, I can definitely connect you and show you around what I've done, but it's literally not at the beginning. You got to wait and hit it when you're really feeling confident.
Fantastic. Thank you. What I want to do is, while we're finishing up here, is just to make sure that we're addressing some of the questions in the Q&A. And Laura's been monitoring those on the side, my amazing colleague, Laura Benson. So Laura, do you want to help us navigate some of those real quick?
Yeah, I think the questions have been phenomenal, and they're just such a good compass to steer our thinking. And we're really grateful to have all of you here and hear your thinking. Nikki, we just were having a lot of questions about assessment. So if you and Sean and Janice want to say a little bit more about that, and then move into maybe any closing thoughts too on play.
So assessment is, as Nikki was saying, I mean, we're at the point where we've been doing this since February, and the end may or may not be anywhere near in sight, which means we're starting to think about end of year reporting, which is rather scary considering we haven't had a lot of time to assess our kids.
Right.
So some of the, I mean, we've been talking about scheduling one-on-one sessions with them, or maybe using the Seesaw assignments to do assessments, so then we can make sure that we get every child, because you can easily check to see if everybody has uploaded something via the assessments or via the activities. Did I say that right the first time? Activities. We really, I mean, really, we're kind of hoping that we're going to be back in school before the end of the school year so that we'll be able to do some of these in person, because some of the effort we've kind of just stalled about this, because some of the effort it's going to take to set this up to do something that's going to take 5 minutes in class is we're just kind of like waiting. So it's a watch this space. I've been thinking about report cards, and maybe we could do a collaborative report with families where we write something like, this is what we think we are seeing your children do. Can you confirm or not confirm? Or maybe even some sort of Google form where it says, my child can do this confidently. I'm still working on this. Not yet, or I can't comment, and that's going to be for the families that actually aren't able to attend themselves to the child's learning. I mean, there's so many different ways that we're thinking about it, but none of it is solid at this point in time. I'm now going to look into Calendly, as Nikki has suggested, and see what could happen there.
Assessment is really difficult when you only have, at times, 30% of the students participating. So we have gone through, at the beginning, we really didn't have many, and it has taken a little bit of time for them to build up the confidence, or parents get sorted, because quite frankly, no one is sorted at the moment. And then we've got into a rhythm of things, and then we had spring break and everyone's tailed off again. I think with assessments, one of the conversations we're having is, what are we seeing? And can we really have an honest conversation about what we're seeing? And if we can see something tangible, then what can we do with that one piece? But it's really looking at the unique student's needs, and it's not looking at your cohort in the same way as you would normally. It's really, really identifying what one student is showing you in that one circumstance.
Right, and thinking about what are the major look-fors that you'd be wanting to see in kids' development at this point in the school year, if you were with them. But since we aren't with them, in person, can we take some of those key look-fors and use those as a touchstone to kind of gauge their growth and development? Sean, how about for you?
We are just getting towards that, since we haven't been in it for as long. Then we've kind of been holding back. Like right now we're in spring break, and we're set to go back April 6th. So that's where I think if it gets extended, then that's where we were going to really hit the books hard on how are we going to do this assessment stuff and all of this. And right now we've been kind of just hoping that we're going to get back in as numbers are slowing down here in Korea and all of that. But I think that's the next big ticket for the village school here is assessment.
Right.
And I think, oh, sorry, Laura, keep going. I was going to say, and I think there's probably going to have to be a huge parent education piece involved in this, saying like, what you get this year is not going to be what you normally get. And like, done is going to be better than perfect. And I mean, the whole world's dealing with that right now. I think it may be the least of their worries, unless they're trying to get into some high
I think
school somewhere.
Yeah, and I think since we've had the examinations cancelled, and we're having a whole different conversation about, about diplomas and GCSEs and everything else that's going on in the world, I think that, the kindergarten assessments that we're having at the moment, we're not sure, but we really don't think Beijing will be back in school. It's going to be, we'll see, hoping, fingers crossed.
Right.
But so what we can do online is really a very small proportion of what we would be doing in other circumstances.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dana, do we want to start wrapping things up, perhaps?
Yeah, just to let everyone know, so we've been, I've been copying and pasting in a Google Doc the chat, and so we'll be sharing that out and sending that to everyone. Additionally, John has been recording it, so we're going to upload that and then send out a link. So if you missed it, you want to go back over or share it with other people within, your school or other early years educators, it will be available. We'll also host that that on the ISS website, so you can go back and find it again in the future. And as we do more of these webinars, we'll be putting them up there. We're just trying to help. The international schools have been dealing with this potentially a little bit longer than some schools around the world, especially a lot of the schools in Asia. And these schools, for those of you who aren't aware, are amazing schools all over the world that generally have a lot of, all the schools are taught in English for the most part, and have educators that are dealing with the same curriculum and standards that you would have within your own host country. And they deal with kids, expats, and kids from all over the world. And they've been navigating these waters, and learning from them has been incredibly helpful. And I just really want to thank Sean and Nikki and Janice for giving us your time and sharing your expertise with us and helping so many people. Early years in particular is something that we're all concerned about, and making sure we're not spending, we don't want kids sitting in front of computers all day, but we also still want the learning to continue. And I think so many of the messages that you said today were so helpful in the fact that just remembering that, that we don't need to be perfect, and we're navigating new waters together. And I don't know, you guys have been fantastic. Just feel free to jump in if anyone wants to say anything. You're ending. Why don't you guys all say goodbye or say something real quick?
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It was great to kind of share. It's been such a kind of crazy journey. Just take it slowly. Don't throw yourself in. You will wear yourself out, and you need to be, full of energy and creativity. Just take it slow.
One final tip too that I don't think was said, don't be afraid to divide and conquer. Just because I'm the homeroom teacher for one kindergarten, Nikki can very well create a seesaw activity and all of kindergarten shares it instead of all three of us making the exact same thing. Math taught by one teacher instead of 6 teachers. So don't hesitate to do that. And thank you all for attending.
Yeah. And I think I want to say, sort of along the same theme, you are going to run out of steam. You are going to have hard days. You are going to have days where you just wake up oh my goodness, are we doing this again? You're going to have many of those days. Share how you're feeling with your colleagues. Talk to them. If you're frustrated and you're trying to struggle with something, do that. I mean, one of my colleagues did that last week, and she's like, I really don't know what to do for math anymore. And we just threw some ideas at her, and she was like, oh my gosh, I've got so many ideas now. And use each other to energize yourselves. Step back, figure out how to take a break, do what you need to. Get up in the morning, get your coffee, get everything, get yourself started just like you're going to work. Set up your routines for yourself, because you've got to establish some sort of normal in order to sustain it for however long you might be doing this. It's tiring. It's really hard.
Take a nana nap.
But you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to the end. And just as a final closing note, I just want to I forgot to thank John Burns for helping us handle all the tech on the back, Laura Benson for helping with all the Q&A, and the whole ISS team who helped us really put this out there, because when I first came up with this idea, it quickly grew, and we originally had 1,000 people sign up for this, or just shy of that, 832. So we thought, okay, that's a lot of people, and we've had a great support. So thank you, everybody, and we'll keep trying to do these as much as we can. And you're doing a great job. Keep it up, everyone.